Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Leo Laporte, episode 36 for September 21st, 2007. The news from Redmond. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Audible.com. For your free audiobook, visit audible.com/Windows. It's time for Windows Weekly, a chance to talk about the latest news from Redmond. Even that sounds weird when I say that.
I didn't even have to laugh.
The latest from Redmond with Mr. Paul Thurrott. Paul is the... And now the news from Redmond. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America and all the ships at sea. Paul Thurrott is the news editor for Windows IT Pro magazine. He's also, of course, the writer, host, and guy in charge of the Super Site for Windows, an excellent site at winsupersite.com. You can catch his latest book at bookstores everywhere. It's Windows Vista Secrets with Brian Livingston, and a great book for Vista users it is. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
This is the last time we're going to get to talk to Paul for 2 weeks because Halo 3 comes out on Tuesday, and we're not going to actually, he's not going to come up for air at least till November.
I just can't make any promises.
It's funny.
Don't make them believe that that's why.
No, there's other reasons. But
I would record a podcast sometime in the next 2 weeks. And
he might be going, take that. I am the Master Sergeant. No, you're going to Microsoft next week, right?
Yeah, next week I'll be in Redmond.
What's the event you're going to?
I'm going to help judge a Windows home server contest. They have developers that are making add-ons.
Oh, neat.
For the product, yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, I hope so.
Home server is out now officially. Sort
of, yeah. I mean, it's finished, I guess is the way to put it.
Finished is not a good word to use.
It's
done. No, that's not good either. Can you buy?
The version has ceased development.
No, that sounds like it's deceased. Can you buy a Windows home server machine if I go on to Dell.com? Can I buy a Windows home server?
No, not yet. That's going to be in the next couple of weeks. So I guess a lot of the OEMs are waiting on some kind of a big software fix of some sort.
All right. So. And there were a lot of beta users. Are they going to get to keep their? I mean, what will happen to that?
I don't know. I don't know that they've announced that.
Okay. So you can buy Windows Home Server just like as you would buy an OEM version of Windows and build your own Windows Home Server. But most people will choose to buy a machine running Windows Home Server.
Yeah, and some of the servers I've seen are pretty sweet looking. So
there's a lot of capability built into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the hardware itself is just cool. The HP media server is just really neat looking. So
yeah, I'd be very interested to see if this takes off. I think it solves a real problem. There's no question about that. I just don't know if the average user knows they have that problem and knows where to look, and really, most of all, is willing to buy a computer that they don't compute on.
I think that how it's shaping up, I guess we'll see, but it seems a lot like Media Center to me, which is the people who get it are going to absolutely love it, and a lot of people just won't understand that it's even there.
Right.
I think people just would be surprised by how good it is. It's actually it's a nice package. So.
I talk to a lot of end users on the radio show, and I there's definitely a divide between the enthusiast who will get it and understand it, might even buy it, and the average home user for whom this is clearly intended.
Right.
And they just don't. I don't think they see it that way. They just say, "Well, no, I've got a computer. I don't need it. I have a computer. What? I don't understand. What do you want me to do with this? Put it in where? Exactly. The closet? No, I'm not.
Why do I want another machine here? Exactly?
One that doesn't have a screen and a keyboard.
One that I do not sit down and actually use.
They don't get. They're not going to get that. Stuff. Yeah, it's a tough.
Well, I think that's why the form factors on these are interesting. They don't look like towers. You don't.
Right.
It looks like a little, a cube thing you stick in the corner.
Do you think people will put it in the living room, or will they?
I hope not. As an end table of sorts.
Well, they're not that big, are they?
You got to remember. I mean, back when Media Center first came out, the vision was people would stick these things in their den.
Right.
And people like myself and others who did this very quickly realized, a computer's kind of a complicated thing to have in the den.
Yeah.
And, thus,
especially if you have kids.
Yeah. So I think that I would just look at this in many ways as a glorified storage device.
Right. Well, you and I understand that. It's kind of network attached storage.
That's how I would explain it to someone, and you don't have to talk too long before people will agree with you that, backing up your digital photos is a really good idea.
Yeah.
That
they like the idea. What's the price point on most of these? Is it $1,000?
No, I think it's a lot less than that, actually.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, the HP one probably starts around $499.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
I'd be very interested to see what happens. I think you and I get it, and enthusiasts get it and want it and like the idea. I'm puzzled about, I don't know if the market's ready for it. Anyways, Halo 3 is coming out on the 25th. I have now 2 copies pre-ordered. I don't know how this happened. One on Amazon and one at my local Game Crazy. And I guess, I don't know. I guess I'll pick one. And the Amazon won't come till 2 days later, so I'm going to want it that day, aren't I?
I am.
What's your situation?
Is it going to? Because I'm flying to Redmond that night.
This is your. Do you have to pre-order it, or does Microsoft FedEx it out to you?
You know what? It's a complicated story. As of this moment, I'm not yet getting one from them directly, and I'm hoping to change that. I believe that some of the people I work with have actually gotten a copy, so I'm a little confused why.
You should have a copy.
I have not, but I have pre-ordered one. Regardless, because I have multiple Xboxes, and I would need more than one copy anyway. So, my goal is to get this thing on Tuesday, so I can bring it, or by Tuesday, so that I can bring it with me when I go out to Seattle, because I stay with friends and they have an Xbox 360.
Perfect.
And I've already explained to them the severity of the situation.
I will not be talking to you. I will be taking my meals in front of the TV. And please keep the music down.
Understand that I will be awake all of Tuesday night playing this game.
Are you really that excited about it?
No, but I understand that this is a big deal for a lot of people, and
I'm getting excited. I liked Halo, and I liked Halo 2, and I played a lot of it.
I liked them too. I don't think that having been a longtime PC gamer, I can look at something like Halo and say, well, this is derivative of other games in books and movies and things.
It's not that original, no.
Oh
boy, okay. I'm going to get the mail though. If you say one bad thing like that, it's like you've criticized God and country.
I like it. I don't. I'm not fanatical.
We played a lot of Halo 2. I guess it was on the screensavers set, and we couldn't stop. In fact,
really,
the show was live. So we'd be coming back from commercial, and we'd all be playing LAN party games of it. And they'd go, and we're back in 3, 2, and okay. And you're going to get shot the minute you look up from it. But it was fun. It was fun. We had one producer, Joshua Brentano, who was just a master of this game.
Yeah, they're right. I mean, it's funny. I consider myself fairly good at certain games, and I've never gotten to the point where I can consistently play Halo online and be fantastic
because you're too old. You don't have the reflexes of a 12-year-old.
That's for sure. But no, I mean, I play other games and I do great. And I don't know. I just never got into the vibe.
I never do well in these first-person shooters against online because these kids play it all the time. They have great reflexes. It's in their brains, and I know it's not a native language for me, I guess. And it is for them. So really, I don't know why we're talking about this, because there's a huge story. The
20 minutes later.
The elephant in the room. The EU has upheld its decision against Microsoft. Microsoft has to pay, what is it, $600 million, something like. Of course, as the dollar gets weaker, the fine goes up.
Well, I know that the money was put into some sort of an escrow account, 3 years ago. So actually, I think they've already paid it.
It's chicken feed for Microsoft, though, let's face it. It's more about losing the case than anything else.
Oh, sure. I mean, if anything, you can look at the very specific nature of some of the charges and then some of the things Microsoft has had to do to answer those charges. But in my mind, the bigger deal is the more general issue of, what this means for, Windows going forward. I mean, you could look at Windows Vista and say quite clearly that this operating system, I don't want to say was compromised, but certainly was dramatically affected by the antitrust rulings both in the U.S. and in Europe. And now that this one has been upheld, and in many ways is much more strict than what we saw in the United States.
Much more.
This becomes the bar, for everything going forward. So
Microsoft is now compelled to disclose proprietary data to strip music and video software out of a version of Windows.
Or to at least offer a version in Europe.
A stripped version, yeah.
But see, again...
Which no one will buy, by the way. Doesn't the court understand this? What's the point?
Well, right. So their point is that they don't really care if anyone buys it. That's not the reason they're, requiring this. It's more to make Microsoft understand that they have to be careful about bundling products, that they need to think about this. And
which was the point the DOJ had as well.
Absolutely.
In the US.
Windows Vista, there's a lot of stuff that I think we all agree would have been bundled in Windows that's now being offered through Windows Live instead.
Right.
That, it wouldn't have been this way, perhaps, if the EU hadn't stepped in.
And I have to say, I as a consumer, I don't think consumers feel like they were protected by that ruling. They want it all to be in one thing. What's wrong?
Sure.
Consumers like bundling.
Well, ultimately, though, bundling actually hurts consumers. And I think this is the issue. In a lot of the feedback I get from people. And by the way, there's some interesting side issues here. How dare any legal entity outside of the United States, slap my United States company around in this fashion? They have no right determining, what the software I use is going to be like.
They do, though. I mean, it's Microsoft wants to do business in that market. They have to.
So that's the thing. I mean, I guess you could choose to, walk away from 40% of your business, but that's, that's not what they choose to do. So I would just say this, in the very short term, bundling things like Windows Media Player and all these other digital media functions into Windows seems like a great idea because you as a consumer gets this stuff for free. And what's the problem?
Right.
The problem is if this stuff is sophisticated enough and good enough, third-party development and thus innovation drops off the face of the earth.
Nobody's going to try to compete with something that comes with the operating system.
And history has shown in such things as Internet Explorer and Windows Millennium Edition that when Microsoft doesn't have a lot of competition, they stagnate as well. And that's when consumers get hurt right there because there's no one on the third-party side stepping up when Microsoft's not doing a good job. So what you need is a level playing
Can't you use Firefox as the counter to that? Look at the Internet Explorer is bundled, and yet there's a superior third-party browser out there.
No, but see, Firefox is actually the evidence that supports what I just said because Firefox came to life in the era when Microsoft was not improving Internet Explorer because they had already gotten market domination.
They didn't have to anymore.
Right.
So as long as they kind of keep up, there's nobody's going to compete with them.
Well,
I mean, I have to look though at Windows. I don't see any applications in Windows that would put me at ill at ease trying to compete with Microsoft. Windows Movie Maker, that's not going to stop anybody.
But I think that's the point. Right. And that what is in Windows needs to be some sort of a baseline. It needs to be reasonable.
Right. I mean, Apple does this. Well, look at Apple. Apple ships a huge amount of application software with its operating system.
As we learned, during Microsoft's antitrust trial, it is okay for a company to do things like that
if you're
they don't
not
have
a
dominant position in the market.
Right. Yeah. By the way, I'm just playing devil's advocate here to give you a chance to answer.
Well, Apple may run into some problems of their own, which we can discuss in a little while. With regards to music, when it comes to the Macintosh, the Mac today in the United States has somewhere around 5% market share. It's probably half that worldwide. Nobody cares.
It's
what Apple puts in there.
Yeah, right. A lot of news about the Department of Justice in the U.S. ragging on the European Court of Justice. We're talking about. Let's see.
This one was humorous to me because like I said, I got emails from people who said, how dare the European Union, do whatever they're doing to my country, my company, and I didn't realize until a day later that a lot of the language these people were using was coming from the DOJ. Which
Thomas Barnett, who is the antitrust chief at the DOJ, actually issued a statement which
can you believe it?
Makes it kind of official, in which he said this chills innovation and discourages competition. He was very aggressive. the EU's response was, this is totally unacceptable. You don't do this.
Yeah, the big line in my mind that he used was, in the United States, the antitrust laws are enforced to protect consumers, not competitors. I think that's a really vague distinction. I mean, obviously, you don't want to prop up companies. In other words, the goal shouldn't be let's hammer on Microsoft until their OS market share falls to at least 80%. That obviously that's not the goal. But if you look at what the EU did, I mean, really, this was pro-consumer ultimately. I mean, yes, in the case of the server protocols and all that. I mean, the idea was that Microsoft shouldn't be allowed to obtain a monopoly in the workgroup server market like they did on the desktop, by bundling products and by keeping competitors out. But that's just preventing illegal activity.
Right.
Ultimately, more choice in the workgroup server market will benefit, end users.
Right.
That's the point.
Right. Yeah. Well, and legal experts all over said this is not what. Not only is this not done, it actually is. According to one person who teaches antitrust at Howard University Law School in D.C., Andrew Gavel, he said it undermines the ability to develop a global system of rule of law. He said potentially this devalues the input from American policymakers when they're working with European policymakers to create antitrust standards.
It was incredibly naive and stupid of him to say anything about this. And Neelie Kroes, who is the competition commissioner for the European Commission, said basically that, it's unacceptable for the DOJ to criticize an independent court's decision.
Right.
The European Commission doesn't pass judgment on rulings in U.S. courts.
Imagine the uproar if the European court said, you really shouldn't be putting people to death. That's just not acceptable.
Yeah, maybe you could think, look at that one again. Yeah. That kind of thing. I mean, what are you doing? That just doesn't happen. No. It's crazy.
Well, nice job. I tell you, Apple and Google, you say, are. In their certain areas, Apple's a monopoly in music, as you pointed out. Google's a monopoly in search and advertising. Are they next?
Yeah, I think so. I would describe them as near monopolies, but
they shouldn't feel any schadenfreude over the Microsoft.
No. In fact, this should make them very nervous. Google, of course, is trying to buy DoubleClick, and one of the hurdles they have to overcome is acceptance of this by the European community, and they're going to be looking at this in an antitrust context, of course. Apple is already in court in the EU about song pricing structures and how they charge different prices for songs in different countries, which is illegal in the European Union. They have laws about unified pricing for that kind of thing. I think Apple's got a bigger problem because it's very much like Microsoft in that the behaviors that led them to this position were fine when they didn't have market dominance. Requiring iTunes to use an iPod or now an iPhone or an Apple TV is okay when you don't have a monopoly. It's okay to do that. But once you have swept aside all other competition, suddenly you have to play by different rules.
Right.
And I think, some of the inroads that Apple's made this year with more open formats like non-DRM tracks on the iTunes Store primarily are a good first step. But, the iPhone is an amazing example of lock-in. I mean, you can't even use the phone as a phone until you connect it to iTunes.
I know. Ugh.
Astonishing. Astonishing.
You can.
Okay.
I've unlocked my phone, and it's great. I love it. I'm free at last. I'm using T-Mobile. I don't need to use iTunes. It's just great.
Wow. Okay, well.
But that's not, I don't know if it's illegal, but it's not approved. Let's put it that way.
Sure. So, lock-in is,
that's highly monopolistic.
What I like, the Apple thing is interesting because, of course, the complaints I will get from people about this will say, but Apple makes really good stuff. Why would I want to use anything else?
Or I'll make maybe a more legitimate argument, which is Apple's preserving the end-to-end user experience in a way that no one else has been able to do. And that answers a lot of the complaints people have about cell phones and smartphones. I mean, it does work better this way, right?
But it still doesn't. I don't know. That's open to debate. But I would just say that that doesn't actually answer the legality of the situation, which is, Apple, by creating a DRM scheme that they do not license to others, by creating an ecosystem of devices now and software that work with each other and with nothing else, or with basically nothing else. I mean, there are some scary things that Apple has done, like, requiring hardware makers for iPod-compatible devices to include an Apple chip in them that has no functional purpose.
Wow.
Other than to require them to pay a fee to Apple so they can get that logo.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
That kind of thing. Yeah,
no, I've said many times, and this is clearly becoming more the case, that if Apple had Microsoft's market share, they'd be worse than Microsoft is. They'd be more arrogant. They'd be more greedy. And, in the areas where they have this kind of control, you're starting to see a little bit of that.
Right. Well, ringtones, is a silly but obvious example of,
Now, it's not clear whether you blame, there are some people who've written who say Apple was forced into that. And it's true that this is the recording industry's point of view, is these are derivative works. And by the way, we don't even give the artists any money. We keep it all for ourselves. And Apple, no, you cannot give these away. So it's possible. Who knows? Except
that, as Will Shipley noted today, or actually, excuse me, it might have been Stephen Fry, some blog that I read today, said that, this is all very interesting, but every single smartphone I've ever owned before the iPhone not only allowed me to use any MP3 file as a ringtone, but over 90% of them included free ringtone editors, so I could make my own ringtones.
Right.
I mean, this is, Apple's not the first company that's ever run into this issue.
It must have been Stephen Fry, because that's typical of a European system. In the United States, That's not the case, of course. Verizon doesn't let you do it. Sprint doesn't let you do it. You have to buy much more expensive ringtones. So it probably was Stephen Fry writing from a European perspective.
But listen, buying a ringtone, I have to say, from pure consumer experience, if I own a song, and maybe I bought it on CD or bought it from iTunes, who cares? And Apple or whoever wants to charge me $2.49 for a ringtone version of it that's pre-made, I can at least argue that in that case, I'm paying for a service, which is somebody made the ringtone for me.
Good point.
Why would only a company like Apple, which is so infused with the whole creative professional thing, would ever think that anyone would want to make a ringtone using a waveform editor? Just the crazy.
I like it because I want to control it.
Of course you like it, but you are in that world.
Right.
I mean, to a normal person, I say that with this sort of air quotes there. I mean, like a typical person. The very notion of bringing up a program that does that sort of thing is like, what? It's like electrical engineering. I mean, you're going to be kidding me.
Right. No, it's an interesting point. And David Pogue wrote a great column in the New York Times in which he pointed out really the bottom line. Why do I pay extra? Because I'm triggering a song, differently. I'm pressing the play button versus somebody calling me. I own the song. It's on the phone. And you want to charge me to play it a different, with a different trigger? It's ridiculous. That's absurd, and I fully believe it's the recording industry.
The behavior of a company that has now has dominant market share, and they're going to have some problems.
Yeah. No, how about Google? Google is both Apple and Google are frankly in the European courts right now defending various things.
Well, the Google thing is, if anything, is even further reaching, because the problem with Google is they own all of our data, and there are some huge privacy issues that arise from a company that, everyone looks at Google and thinks internet search, but that's not what Google is all about.
It's not their business, right?
No, Google makes money from advertising. And Google makes money by advertising by doing such things as looking at my email and then putting an ad next to my email in Gmail that is like my email.
Right.
In other words, they say they can see that I am exchanging an email about an iPod. There's an iPod ad next to that email. That's kind of scary, isn't it? I mean, if Google becomes the dominant online company, which I would say it already is, and there are no competitors, what happens when Yahoo goes away, and Microsoft has to strike a strategic alliance with Google because when Google is when do you stop a company like that?
Right.
Do they get to own all the online advertising?
Right.
Do they get to hold all of the data for users?
We're clearly in a brave new world because it's not only this issue of monopoly, but it's this issue of monopoly globally.
Yes.
With multiple courts that you have to respond to. One of the things Google has been asking for is an international privacy standard because they find it difficult to adhere to privacy standards that differ from nation to nation. And, nowadays companies aren't they are global. They're absolutely not. They're doing business everywhere.
Sure.
Tough.
And Google literally everywhere. China.
Yeah.
Wherever.
Right. Right.
Right. They'll do business with anybody.
Of course, Google's asking for the much less stringent privacy protections of Asia Pacific.
Well, of course. I mean, this is like car manufacturers very begrudgingly, and after many court battles, adding seatbelts to cars. It's not in Google's best business interests to worry about your privacy, just as it isn't for Microsoft or any other company. Right. So, I don't know. These are big issues. They really are. And as the operating system becomes less and less of a guiding force in the computer industry, and the internet becomes more and more, that's going to become a big deal for people and for antitrust regulators. So I think Google's going to spend the rest of their existence in court. I don't see any way around it.
You mentioned Stephen Fry and his new blog, and I am sad because there's so much attention on it, you can't get to it, at least not as we talk today. It's
completely hosed. Yeah.
StephenFry.com. He is,
awesome.
If you don't know who he is, you might have seen him in V for Vendetta. He was the hero in The Mask. He is a very well-known voice. He has a British TV show right now called IQ that's just fantastic. Yep. Comedian, you might have seen him, Fry and Laurie, with Hugh Laurie, who is now House, of course.
Right. Which I still have a problem with, him being serious.
No English accent. I know, it's very strange. If you want to see how good Fry and Laurie were, just search for Fry and Laurie on YouTube, and just
also the Blackadder series.
Blackadder,
with,
right?
Rowan Atkinson, which is just my absolute favorite of all time.
So Fry, who's my age, and one wouldn't expect to be a geek, is in fact, it turns out, pretty big geek.
It's unbelievable. He wrote an essay. I don't know. It's a novella, really, and you can't see it as we.
I'm so sad that you can't.
If you go to StephenFry.com, hopefully by the time this comes out, his website will be back up, and then /blog is his blog. And his first post is about his history with PDAs and smartphones. And I'm telling you, if you get into things like, for example, Neil Stephenson wrote, in the beginning was the command line. And this is an example of a real technophile who happens to be a writer, in his case, writing about technology. Really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen Fry is sort of like a Douglas Adams type guy, where he's a comedian and an actor, in this case, not a writer, but actually he's also a writer. He writes books. Really smart and funny guy. Well, it turns out for his whole life, he's been into technology, and he's, it's a European bent. Obviously, he's from the UK, but he has been buying and using every smartphone that's ever come out, and every PDA. And he has a lot of really intelligent things to say about this market and the various devices that have appeared, including, Apple's iPhone and so forth. And I mean, wow, it's just awesome. It is like the second coming of Douglas Adams. I don't know how else to say it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, there's your iPhone. There's your iPhone. I hear marimba.
That's weird. I think it's another iPhone.
In fact, Stephen on his blog is pictured with his iPhone, a picture of his iPhone. So obviously he is.
Oh, so you got it. You got it to come up.
Well, no. I'm seeing a link to it.
Okay.
Driving me crazy. I haven't. I saw all the Dig. It's probably got dug to death, is what happened. I saw all the mentions on Dig and stuff yesterday. I didn't go then, and I wish I had now because I can't. It's too late. You can't read it. But
he's the man. I don't know how else to say it. You have to check this out. It's great.
I will read it. And we have a standing invitation to Stephen Fry. We talk about him, it seems like, on every podcast to be on any of the Twit podcasts anytime, Stephen. Just let us know. We'll get you on.
Of course. Yeah.
So I had to pause it as we began this podcast, but I've been downloading Lotus Symphony. Mm-hmm. I'm excited.
It's actually decent, I have to say.
IBM is going. I mean, talk about. Now, this might be an argument against what you said about Microsoft, because Microsoft is totally dominant with Office, and along comes IBM, and they're going to give away Lotus Symphony.
Okay, but understand what they're really doing here, right? IBM is a supporter of the open document format.
Right.
They have stridently worked to prevent Microsoft from getting its own open format accepted as an international standard. So through openoffice.org, IBM is supporting OpenDoc.
Right.
And that's what this is. And as it turns out, IBM had this intellectual property. They've been using these applications, I guess, with their notes.
Is it essentially Open Office?
It is.
Okay.
But unlike openoffice.org and StarOffice, this Lotus branded suite is actually, it's nice looking. I mean, it has, it's a beta. The Windows
Beta 1.
Yeah, it's still a beta, but there is already in this very early version I don't know what to call it, a certain clarity,
Polish.
Polish. Thank you. That just doesn't exist in StarOffice or OpenOffice, and for that reason alone, anyone who looked at these other products and thought, well, I know they're free, but this one, it's nice looking. It really is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm downloading it. I can't wait to see it. Is it? I guess it would be Java. Yes.
Well, actually, I'm not sure.
That's one thing I think that keeps StarOffice from looking super native and super slick.
Yeah, the Java stuff. Certainly Java is a big part of the IBM package. I'm not sure if the whole thing is written in Java, but it just has a nice look and feel to it. I mean, it really, and it works on Linux and Windows, which of course is a big draw.
And does it read and write Microsoft's formats?
Yeah, of course. So just like OpenOffice, they have the word processor, spreadsheet, and the presentations package. I mean, none of them are necessarily as good as the Microsoft equivalents, especially, the 2007 versions. But already, I would say these are better.
A lot less.
Yeah, it's dramatically less, as it turns out.
I mean, the sticker shock on Office 2007 is pretty severe.
Although we have something to say about that in a few minutes.
Yes, well, we have some good news for students. But let's finish our...
Yes.
Lotus Symphony
for
review.
most people, Office is a daunting purchase, and it's the type of thing I would assume that most people just get with a new PC. Although I should also
That's not true. A lot of PCs do not come with Office.
Yeah, well, but you can get it with a PC for cheaper.
Fairly cheaply, right.
It turns. I think this week it was NPD said that Office 2007 is actually selling dramatically better at retail than previous versions of Office, which of course isn't the case with Windows. And that was sort of a surprise. That this thing has actually been selling really well.
Huh.
So I think that's a problem, for the open office guys. But anyway, listen, if you're cash strapped and so forth, this is something to look at. And obviously it's beta 1, so you might want to wait a little while and see how it progresses. But it already is, as you said, more polished than anything OpenOffice or StarOffice has ever come out with by far.
We'll mention some good news from students in just a second. But before we do, I want to mention our Audible book pick of the week. Audible.com is the sponsor of most of these TWIT podcasts. AUDIBLE.com. It's a great place to listen to audiobooks because, unlike my old audiobook provider, I get the book I want right away. I can download it. I don't have to wait for the cassettes to come in the mail. I can keep it as long as I want. In fact, you can go back through your library even after you've deleted books and find old books. I've got hundreds of books there, and it's kind of like having a library. It's really fun. Books of all kinds too. Everything from fiction, mysteries. Paul likes the pot boilers. I do a lot of nonfiction history. It's all there. 35,000 books. Plays back on your computer. You could burn it to CDs or any of 135 different devices, including, of course, your iPods, but many other devices as well. I am a fan of Audible. We've got a big announcement. Audible's making a big announcement on Halo Day. Oops.
Really?
Yeah, September 25th. And we're going to actually leak the announcement on Twit the day before. So listen to Twit. We've got a special. Meanwhile, though, I do want to encourage you to sign up for Audible. We get the benefit if you sign up at audible.com/Windows. In fact, you get a benefit, too. You get a credit toward a free book. And I'd like to recommend something that I've talked about a lot. We talk about it. Merlin Mann's the expert on it. But I haven't recommended the book yet. And I realize it's kind of a mistake. All of us in tech are having a hard time keeping our lives organized. I think that's pretty common. And there really is a great book. I think I've read every organizational book out there. The king of them all is Getting Things Done by David Allen, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. He's searching for it right now.
I have 2 credits, and I'm traveling next week.
That's a great one. And Dave Allen reads it himself. He's very inspiring. But the premise of Getting Things Done is if you have things undone, loose ends, your mind, the way your mind works is it'll keep bugging you about it. And it really adds to your stress. It adds to, you feel guilty. Every time I walk by my garage, I go, ugh. So Getting Things Done is about not merely getting things done, but really about eliminating stress from your life with a system that works. And it's a very simple system, easy to implement. Techies love it because you can use your PDAs or your computers. There's a lot of different software programs for it. This is the book. I've tried them all. I took I've taken all the courses, the Covey courses. I've taken the planner courses, everything. This is the one. Anyway, just one of many books. We've recommended a ton of them, and I've got some on my blog now, leoville.com/blog. If you click the books link, I'm putting some of my favorites up there. This is definitely one of them. Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by David Allen. That could be your free book. All you got to do is go to audible.com/windows. You sign up, get the book. No obligation, no cost if you decide not to stick around, but I think you will. I think Audible really is. For anybody who's got some downtime, if you're listening to podcasts, you already get the idea of listening and using your downtime effectively. Audible is just a wonderful thing to add to that iPod or your player, portable player. It's audible.com/windows. We thank them so much for their support of Windows Weekly. Yeah, you got 2 credits. You got some trips up. This is exactly the time to go to Audible. I do that when we're traveling with the kids. I'll go and get a couple of kids' books.
Sure,
it's nice to have some credits on there. I like that.
Yeah.
And speaking of credits, I didn't realize this, but you can get Office 2007 very cheaply if you're a student.
Yeah, it's amazing, and not just Office 2007, but the Office 2007 Ultimate version.
Which is everything, right? I mean, you get access.
Yeah, it's the insane version. Yeah, so it's $59.95. That's in the United States. There are versions of this offer for Canada, the UK, Italy. I can't figure out the flags here. France, and then what's the? I have to look at this one. I don't know what this one is. I'm sorry. Poland, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know.
That's funny.
Anyway,
I'm not looking at them where I try to help you. I have no idea.
It's red and yellow. Anyway, if you go to theultimatesteel.com, you can find this offer. And basically, the only restriction, per se, is that you don't get a physical DVD unless you pay extra. What you're getting is the download access, and it's a perpetual license, so you get it forever. And you pay the fee, and you get a product key. And my iPhone continues to ring.
There's a little switch on the left.
I turn off all my phones when we do this, except
it makes it so easy on the iPhone. There's just that little switch on the left there. Mine's on too, though, so watch. In a second,
it's buzzing away. So very strenuously.
So has this been going on for, it says offer ends April 30th, 2008.
No, this has just been a week or two now.
That's such a deal.
Yeah.
Now, how do I prove I'm a student? I mean, how do I?
Yeah, you do have to prove you're a student. And this is something I have not gone through.
You have to have an EDU address.
Is that what
Seriously,
it is?
Yeah. You have to have a valid email address at a U.S. educational institution. But you know what? That doesn't. Oh, okay. If they ask, you have to provide enrollment status. The reason I say that doesn't work is because I have an EDU address as an alumnus. So, not that I would ever try to steal from Microsoft.
Right. So
no, because they sent me a copy, so I don't need to. But that's a good deal. That's great.
So this is off topic, but I just want to note that my iPhone is now hung, so it is buzzing away, and it won't stop buzzing.
Oh, that's good. See how long it takes to kill the battery.
It's just sitting up.
You know how to unhang it. Shall I tell you how to unhang it, or
please do? Because right now I'm pressing down the button to shut it off, and it won't even shut off.
You press the both buttons, and can you hold them for a long time, longer than the shut off time? You just keep holding it. Eventually, the screen goes black, and then
it's unreal how long this.
Now, if you hold it too long, you'll get you now have to connect it to the iTunes, the restore triangle. So don't hold it too long. Just long enough so it shuts off. And then you can push the on button and you'll get the little white apple. And that's your iPhone tip of the week.
Wow. And listen, nothing like 1.0 technology. Okay.
One thing that I did not know that you've been a fan of or been part of for a while is green computing. I had no idea that was one of your things.
Well, it's a I don't know, a pet peeve or whatever. But I haven't done something or anything with this in a while, but I, of course, had bought that device last year that measures, how much electricity that electronic devices are consuming and so forth. So I have on tap some interviews with PC makers and also with Microsoft to discuss their green computing efforts.
Oh, neat.
But what's interesting, I didn't expect them to send me the PC, but Lenovo this week sent me a ThinkCenter. I think it's an A61E small form factor PC that uses low voltage chips, and it's Energy Star compliant and all this stuff. And it's actually really neat. I connected it to my main display and was using it for a big part of today. And it's absolutely silent. It's really neat. Aside from the fact that it has apparently a built-in speaker, so every time I don't have it connected to speakers, but it still emits sounds.
Right. Does it now? Is it going to be a lot slower though because it's using the low-power chips? I mean, it's not like Transmeta.
No. The version I have actually has
it's got a
very
Core
fast
2.
dual-core AMD processor, but you can get it with a Sempron or whatever. It does all the Aero stuff and Vista and whatever. But this is just sort of I'm going to do something for the print mag, but I want to do something expanded for the SuperSite where I want this to become a topic that I come back to, again and again. And this thing is just really interesting to me. I mean, it's current generation CPUs from Intel and AMD all have amazing power management capabilities built in. Obviously, the ones that are coming down the pike are going to be even better. This is just something that it just hits on every level. If you do anything with electronics at all, like we do, obviously, all the time. You talk about Xbox 360s or portable devices and iPods and whatever. I mean, this is just something that it just hits on everything.
Yeah.
And I'm really fascinated by this. So I'll have more to say about this in the future. But I guess what I'm looking for right now is just a little bit of feedback or from people who may be interested in this topic. What they want to hear about and what they want me to ask these companies and what they want to know about and that kind of thing. So
excellent. Yeah, we're looking at doing a green podcast. So we'll get you on for that. Because
you should have my wife on for this because she's the environmental.
Is she the queen of green?
Yeah. She's on the board of directors of an organic farm and
neat.
So she's the resident, the hippie here in the Toronto.
Well, I notice you're wearing Birkenstocks today, so you're obviously part of that group. Finally, it's time for our software pick the week.
Yes,
and this is something I can get behind because I've been using it on the Mac, but there's a Windows version too, and what a great program!
Yeah. It's called Handbrake, and the version on Windows, I have to say, is a bit inferior to the version that's on the Mac, but it's still quite usable. The biggest caveat, I would say, and this will be disappointing to anyone who's used the Mac version, is that you also need to have some sort of software that will decrypt commercial DVDs, because what the software does is allow you to essentially rip a DVD or one of those TS video folders to an H.264 or an MPEG-4 video file. And this ties into another thing that's an ongoing concern for me, which is what I think of as digital media core, which is just this notion that if you look at digital photos or digital music or digital videos and so forth on an ongoing basis, maybe I used to do this year by year, but this is something I want to revisit now in the near future. There are certain ways to do things. There are right ways and wrong ways, and you can rip files in different formats. What's the right format to use? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, Handbrake is. I think of Handbrake as probably the best H.264 ripper available. I would say. As you know, that's especially true on the Mac, but it's also true of the PC version. I happen to use. We talked about AnySoft and
the DVD clone and
DVD and Slysoft. I'm sorry, DVD from Slysoft before, and that works just fine with Handbrake on the PC. I still use and recommend that. It works fantastically, and of course it does other things,
which is great.
Handbrake is
yeah.
Right. So it's something I've been working with it a lot this week because one of the things I wanted to figure out was where is the sweet spot between file size and encoding bit rate and so forth. You need to do 2-pass encoding, that sort of thing. So I've spent a lot of time this week working with it. And actually, as it turns out, I think the sweet spot is actually just one of the presets. It has a preset for, iPod high res. It's 640 by whatever. You want to turn on auto cropping so that it crops off the letter boxing. So you don't use up that, record black space or whatever. But,
I'm with you on this H.264. I think it's very high quality codec, but it's very flexible too. I mean, you can encode it for everything from a cell phone to an HD TV and get the kind of picture that device can do best.
The picture quality is astonishing. I mean, if you put a video from, that you've ripped with this product, on an iPod, especially an iPhone, I got an iPod Touch today. Same thing. Or if you have an Apple TV or an Xbox 360 and you want to put it up on a TV set, the video quality is just astonishing.
Yeah.
I think the big problem with H.264, looking back, was that the encoding time was always horrific.
Right.
That writing really to that format, it was very, very slow.
Yeah.
And it's still, it depends on the system, of course. If you have a modern dual-core processor, I would say in the last 12 months or less, you're going to get fantastic results. It's interesting because I've tried this on all my different systems just to see how they perform. And I have a laptop that is a very new Intel chip, and that one actually is the fastest for this. And it can rip movies in less time than the movie's running time, which is pretty much what you're looking for. But it's an interesting tool. I think the controversy here is, of course, when you look at things from a Microsoft perspective, or I should say a Windows perspective, typically users want things that are going to work across the board with everything they're using. Windows, which in this case means Windows Media Player, Windows Media Center, and so forth. And at this time, H.264 does not work natively with those products, and that's a bit of a problem. But I don't really think that a lot of people, unless they're on a plane or something, are going to watch movies on the PC directly. And that in many ways, what's interesting about this format is that if you do want to do that, of course, you can use QuickTime. It's free. There's no reason not. You can use iTunes. That's also free. Those products work fine on a PC. But I like this because I can blast it out to the den to my 360.
Right.
Watch those videos on the big TV.
So the 360 supports
H.264, yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
Yep.
I didn't know that. That's cool. No, I think it really is the way of the future.
Invested in the Microsoft.
Right. Handbrake.M0K, I should say, .org, which is a weird URL. But you know what? If you Google Handbrake, you're going to find it.
Sure.
And that's our free pick of the week. And now unfortunately, we are going to miss a couple of weeks here because you're going to Redmond next week. And if we can, we'll figure out a way to do a report from Redmond. But and then I go to Vancouver the week after that to do the TV show. So I think we're not going to be back till early November. Or is that right? Early October. No, I scared everybody.
Well, I promise I will finish Halo 3 by then.
Yeah, you could tell us what happens at the end. Spoiler.
It won't be another cliffhanger.
Spoiler. I have a feeling it might be. There's always that Halo 4. Got to keep the franchise going.
Sure. Well, they say they're not doing that.
Really?
We'll see.
Wouldn't that be nice if it all ends?
If it all...
that's it? It's over? Master Chief goes home?
Or they could do the Douglas Adams thing and have a 4-part trilogy.
Only Douglas Adams could pull that off. Oh, well, Paul, have a great trip to Redmond. Have fun with the judging.
Thank you, sir.
And I thank you so much for being here. I thank everybody for joining us. As always, remember our book recommendation, Getting Things Done, is at audible.com/Windows. And we will see you in a couple of weeks. We're going to take a little hiatus. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with Windows Weekly. Take care.
Thank you.